Welcome back to the only podcast on the entirety of the internet that has two people who are doctors and yet
not doctors.
I'm Dr. Patrick Armshaw.
And I am Dr. Christopher Silverstein. Thank you for listening to yet another one of our, well-listened,
indeed,
well-rehearsed,
highly reasoned
podcast about, this politics, both here in the UK and the US.
Politics, current events, and how we know things about things.
And how we know things about things. That's also important. So, in this episode, we're going to cover, some of the recent events that have been happening in America.
And there have been quite a few of them, Chris.
just a few. And after that, we're going to be covering the prisoner's dilemma and the issues related to the right and how the left deals with them.
Well, precisely. And I think we're going to be in a position to knit it all together into a veritable tapestry of knowledge.
In a relatively short amount of time.
Let's see if we can hit that target.
Let's see if we can hit the target here. All right, so first up, let's talk about Trump's wild and wacky, probably deadly week, past couple of weeks.
See, now, Chris, you say week, but I am quite certain, having lived through it, that it was at least 10 years.
Yeah, it does feel like a full month has passed yesterday.
Oh, my God.
And it's been filled with what Steve Bannon would say is just filling the area with shit.
Oh, absolutely. Flooding the zone with shit.
Flooding the zone, that's what he says.
Oh, God, this zone is proper flooded.
Yeah, it's absolutely flooded. So we've had ridiculous cabinet choices, some of whom have already been confirmed, like Pam Bondi.
Yeah, and amazingly, within a day of being sworn in, she has already decided to start attacking Trump's personal enemies with the full force of the U.S. Department of Justice.
Now, Patrick, that's weird, because I recall her saying that there was no enemies list.
Oh, yeah. No, I remember that, too. I remember her saying specifically that politics would play no role whatsoever in anything that she did as Attorney General. I think she may not have been telling the truth.
That is a possibility, but of course, who am I to besmirch the honor of our new Attorney General?
Indeed, and I, for one, welcome our new insect overlords.
Oh, that's the first of many Simpson references, which you will.
Oh God, yeah.
We're gonna need. We're gonna need that. To get through this.
Yeah, exactly. It's part of my personal stash. I've been saving them for just such an occasion.
But only from the 90s.
Exactly. Oh yeah, golden era only. Thank you.
Only.
Don't at me.
Don't at him, please at him. We got people who need to stand up for the current era Simpsons. From what I understand. And what I've seen is actually a lot better than what happened in the 2000s.
Well, that's good. That's good to know. I admit I fell out. But I'll give it another shot.
Well, we got older.
We did. And so have the people who run The Simpsons, unfortunately.
And so the people who give the voices to The Simpsons.
Yeah. Julie Kavner is she does not sound as young as she did.
Well, yeah, and it's a hard voice to keep up throughout the rest of your life.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Oh, but more power to her for keeping it going.
Well, absolutely. No, she's an absolute star and a legend.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So anyways, back to the horrible, very bad, terrible day.
Back to the death of society in general.
It's not society, it's just democracy. People will carry on. There was society before democracy. Your life expectancy wasn't as long, and people didn't have as good of lives, but they did definitely make sure that the aristocracy was very rich.
Well, that's true, right? And as long as they had the fancy castles, as long as they had the nice horses, I think most peasants were just happy to be there.
They were just happy to be there to
just
work.
Happy to be part of it.
Sun up to sundown.
Exactly.
With no chance of any kind of societal advancement.
Indeed.
Some of them didn't even have last names. Anyway, let's move back to the 21st century.
Yeah.
One of the people I want to talk about briefly is RFK.
Yeah.
Bobby Kennedy Jr.
Yeah. Yep, Mr. Brainworm himself.
Mr. Brainworm eats raw meat, puts some kind of blue dye in everything that he drinks, thinking that's going to prevent him from getting cancer.
Can't pass a whale rotting on the beach without chainsawing its head off.
Oh, no.
Taking it home.
Or a bear. Or a bear. I believe it was a bear cub.
It was a bear cub.
It was a bear cub, and he decided to dump it in Central Park.
For larks.
For jokes.
Yeah, man. It's just
jokey
he's
japes.
having a little fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So as we discuss, this person who is the nominee to be the Secretary of Health,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Health and Human Services, it just occurred. I watched a little bit of his confirmation hearing because I just wanted to see how hard the Democrats would go on his anti-vaccine rhetoric, which they did.
Good.
And his responses were just straight up lies.
I mean, that's kind of the pattern at this point.
Like, yeah,
it really raises the question: why do we have Senate confirmation hearings? What is the purpose of them? If number one, the people who are sworn in and are under a legal obligation to tell the truth can lie, and absolutely nothing happens to them, and B, the ruling party has absolutely no problem with this whatsoever. Like,
that's the great Achilles heel of democracy. We have one of the most powerful legislatures in the world in the United States Congress. But if you don't choose to use its rules and powers, it's just a white building.
yeah,
And so the Republicans, who are probably super excited that it's just a white building, are sitting on their hands and asking these. They're just saying, "Mr. Kennedy, you're so smart. You're so well read. Has anyone told you how good you look today?"
Yeah.
And he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, thank you so much. I do look great." And this is a person who he denies that he has anything to do with this, but he went to Samoa. On the backs of an anti-vaccine a wave that he pushed, and there were Samoans who two Samoan young kids had died from poorly administered
it was measles
vaccines.
Yeah. And so I believe that there had been an issue with the nurse who was prepping the shots. She had ended up making a mistake, and two kids had died from it. It was very sad. It was bad.
And so he decided to go there, and on the backs of his kind of now anti-vaccine rhetoric, and convinced a lot of people, I believe including the Prime Minister of Samoa, to say, "Oh, you don't need to do this anymore." And they said, "Sure, sure, sure." And 80 people died. From measles.
Most of them small children. So
and when they said, "Hey, what the hell? You came over here spouting your nonsense," he said, "Has nothing to do with me."
Yeah.
Nothing to do with me.
Well, the thing is, here's the really interesting thing. The way that he sold it to the government of Samoa was to say this will be a natural experiment.
A natural experiment with your kids.
Yeah, a natural experiment. Just going to experiment on your children. We're just going to do a little experiment. We're going to see what happens, because you can't make an omelet without killing a few children.
Well, that's how the old saying goes.
Exactly.
When I understand from the pro-life
Indeed.
party.
Oh, absolutely.
The pro-life party.
Yep.
And also, when it comes to RFK, think about this. Why is this person even... I mean, okay, I understand why he's there.
Yeah.
But think about it logically, which obviously has nothing to do with the MAGA party right now. But the guy started off effectively as an environmental activist.
I know.
In the 2000s.
Oh, yeah.
And then he shifted onto the anti-vax stuff, basically when environmental activism died down, because we started doing the things they asked for.
Yeah.
Started doing things like recycling, started caring about the environment to a degree. Things like the ozone layer actually got better.
I know. The Kyoto Protocols actually, the world came together and fixed a problem, and now the problem is actually being fixed. It's amazing that we were able to do that, and then we all just forgot that we have this superpower of cooperating to fix problems.
Yeah, but who makes money off of cooperation?
Oh, that's a good point, actually, right?
I don't think a lot of people make money off
that. No,
I make way more money out of building bunkers for billionaires so they can
definitely
go underground when the fires come.
If you can create a problem and then offer people the solution to that problem, that's called being an entrepreneur.
That's just smart business.
Exactly.
Once again, smart business is winning the day. So now that RFK basically jumped into the anti-vax area, he's been brought forward as the guy who's going to sort out American health by, I guess, having us all eat raw meat and not vaccinating your kids and
definitely drinking raw milk because you can't. Yeah, because here's the thing, Chris, if you pasteurize your milk, that means you're heating it to the point where deadly bacteria can't survive.
That's right,
and that's just cruel.
I didn't even know we started doing it in the first place because we have immune systems, and before vaccines, everybody lived until 30 or 40.
Exactly.
And they were perfectly happy.
No problems at all with that system, Chris.
Until 30 or 40, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
and that's more than long enough.
Exactly. That's long enough, to pop out a few kids. That's long enough to, fight in a war.
to fight in a war, to be the next generation of people to work on that
Yeah.
farm for the aristocracy.
Exactly. And so,
I mean,
and then once you're 40, really, what's the point of you at that
it's
point?
like Logan's Run. Give him a few more years.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
then the thing goes off in your hand,
Yep.
and then you get sucked up into the incinerates your body. Okay, all right.
Yep.
That's some 1970s sci-fi for you.
I mean, to be fair, so was Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Oh yeah. Well, facts upon facts upon facts. So,
Yep.
I don't think, as of the recording of this, that RFK has been confirmed.
I don't think that's happened yet, but my understanding is that there are not 3 Republican senators who are going to vote against him. So the likelihood is he is going to be confirmed.
And then we're just going to have to wait and see if what happened in Samoa happens in America.
I mean,
Proportionally.
we're not going to have to wait that long, are we?
Well, it depends on how fast he moves. And that gets us on to the next section.
It does.
The speed with which the Elon administration is destroying the American bureaucracy.
It is really impressive just how quickly they've been able to seize control of the towering heights of the United States government. And how incredibly difficult it is to push back against it when the Attorney General is on the side of the people committing the crimes.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's just call Pam Bondi what she is. She's the president's personal lawyer.
Yeah.
And she will go after the president's enemies.
Yeah.
And she isn't working for the country. She's working for him. And everybody knows that. That's the deal, right?
Yeah.
It's like Aileen Cannon, Judge Aileen Cannon.
Yeah.
She works for Trump.
Yeah.
So she will protect him from that end. The Supreme Court has enough people protecting him on that end, and she will make sure that Hillary Clinton will be found guilty of some crime.
Right.
Right.
They'll figure it out. They'll figure it out, people.
Because
Don't worry. They'll get something, I'm sure.
They're gonna get her
Yeah.
because I mean she's committed all of the crimes for which we will figure out later.
Exactly. Crimes TBD.
Crimes TBD that she's
Exactly.
already guilty of.
Exactly.
The case is already the trial's already been had, I believe.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so,
Yeah,
well, as the Red Queen put it, verdict first, trial later. And so
that's just more bureaucracy being
Yep.
cut down
Exactly.
and slimmed down so that we can have a better, faster system of putting people in jails for crimes against Trump.
Chris, who was it who said during the aftermath of the American Revolution, be careful of anyone who wants to make government more efficient, because the most efficient government is a despotism?
I have no idea.
I can't remember who it was, but it was someone cool. And if I can think of it, I'll put it in the comments.
Let's put it in the comments. We'll
Yep.
put it in the description as well.
Yeah.
He'll have to remind me of that later, because that's.
Yeah.
But that is a good. That's a good point, because what's happening is that we have Elon Musk, who is not in charge of a government department.
Yeah.
Let's make this very clear. Elon Musk is not in charge of any department. Doge,
Is
which
not
by
a
the way
department.
is a giant FU to the entirety of the American bureaucracy.
It absolutely is.
Is just a guy, and then people that he's hired, not hired, it's all seemingly 19 and 20-year-olds
Oh, yeah.
who some of them are massive racists.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
and-
I mean, so, okay, have you heard about Elez, the guy who just resigned after the Washington Post revealed that he had been posting tons of things on the internet along the lines of, let's see, I was racist before it was cool,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
mainstream Indian hate.
Oh,
Which,
yeah.
but J.D. Vance was very clear. He came out and he had a statement today saying that he doesn't want a young man's life to be ruined because of some stupid things he said on the internet.
Yeah, like 4 months ago.
Yeah, and it's really important to notice that if a 20-year-old doesn't have control of the U.S. Treasury, that's his life ruined, Chris.
That is his life.
Just like my life has been ruined by not being in charge of the U.S. Treasury.
Yeah, listen.
Yeah.
We talked about this, offline about how you're not in charge of the U.S. Treasury, how you
Yeah.
don't have
Many
access to
times.
people's social security numbers and personal information that you
Not
could
not
use.
even one time have I been given control over the payment system of the U.S. Federal government. And I ask you, Chris, is that fair?
And you have asked me that, and I commiserate with you that it's just not fair that you're not allowed access to some of the most sensitive information that the U.S. government has on its own citizens.
That's right. That's right.
And as somebody else pointed out online, that now that we know who these people are, because we have to, they are just going to be prime targets for all of our enemies' spy agencies. Which I have zero belief that these guys are so dedicated to America that they're going to reject hundreds of thousands of dollars for leaking all sorts of information.
You know, it's funny you should bring that up because it turns out another one of these dudes who goes by the name of Big Balls, because that's the universe we're living in, people, goes by Big Balls. He actually got fired by the tech company that he was working for in 2022 for leaking sensitive information to that company's competitors. Specifically fired for not being able to maintain the most basic of information security. And then, after he was fired, let it be known to the internet that he still had access to all their servers and he could shut them down anytime he wanted. So, clear, level-headed thinking.
From Big Balls.
From Big Balls.
From Big Balls.
Exactly.
In charge of your social security number.
Yep.
If you are
Yeah.
in the United States right now, listening to this. And if you have no issue with Big Balls being in charge of your personal information,
then please write into us here at Doctors Not Doctors Podcast, because we have several bridges to sell you.
don't forget to leave your personal information in the comments.
Exactly.
And and for $1, you can send us $1, and we won't give it any away. It's fine.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a ridiculous system. Other things that Trump or the Hurricane of Chaos has done. So that was mostly Elon. And before we leave that, the Department of Education seems to be next. We seem to have OSHA, the EPA, the IRS are all in the targets of Elon. And one of the things that people are noticing is that the organizations that have done investigations against Elon are the ones that he's going after, like USAID, who was going after him for a Starlink system. So this isn't the discovery of fraud. It is most definitely a vendetta. And you can draw direct, factually based lines, as opposed to people saying that Politico got $8 billion from USAID.
Okay, can we talk very quickly about what that was?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so the administration has been shouting to the rooftops that Politico, which is a centrist sort of politics news site, right?
Yeah.
Has been receiving money from USAID.
Which is, let's just be very clear here, it is the American soft power, they help people, get food, get education, get health care.
They buy crops from America's farmers when prices are low so that they can help people in the rest of the world, so that Americans benefit and the world benefits, and we look cool doing it. It's one of those like win-win-win situations, basically.
Yeah, definitely.
But so, they had paid $8 million to Politico, you see, over the last 10 years, admittedly. And what were they doing this for, you ask?
Okay.
Well, they had bought subscriptions to Politico Pro.
$8 billion in subscriptions?
$8 million.
$8 million in subscriptions?
Over 10 years.
Over 10 years?
To get a subscription for their organization to Politico Pro, which is an offshoot of the website, basically, that focuses on, my understanding is, statutes and what have you. It's like having a LexisNexis account for your business.
And LexisNexis, for those of you who don't know, is a high-powered legal search engine.
Exactly, and so
or a Bloomberg terminal.
Exactly.
For those of you who don't.
This is what that is. So the thing is, it's not just USA that would do that. It is also the Republican Party, because the Republican National Committee absolutely has a Politico Pro subscription.
What?
So, oh yeah.
No, that can't be possible.
Oh, but it absolutely is.
Politico is a dangerous leftist organization filled with the most dangerous leftist organizations of organizations.
Yeah, but they got Politico Pro, and you really can't do much in the world of politics and statecraft if you don't have a subscription there. So, got to pony up.
That's a lot.
Got to pony up.
That just feels like lies. Elon will sort it all out.
Well, that's the thing. It's subsidies of Politico Pro in the same way that us buying shit from Canada means we're subsidizing Canada.
Well, bringing us on to another topic that has happened in the recent past, Trump's amazing failure with the tariff situation.
That was impressive. Folding like Superman on laundry day. Folding like a tent in the wind. Just really impressive stuff.
Just disintegrating like toilet paper and water. It was a wild 72 hours as Trump and the MAGA folk decided that the world is treating us unfairly. He activates some emergency powers saying that fentanyl is coming from Mexico, Canada, and China, which allows him to initiate emergency tariffs. And in doing so, he said, "Oh well, I demand this, I demand that," and they said, "Oh, okay, well, how about we do what we're already doing, and you don't do this." because I don't.
Yeah.
Now I'm obviously not in the room where it happened because because I am
Yeah.
I am not him.
Yep.
But something tells me that when he this has a tie-in with Brexit, which also had its 5th anniversary
All right.
a week or two ago.
True story.
I saw that basically when you build a car,
Mm-hmm.
not sometimes, that they have parts that just keep on crossing international borders.
Well, exactly.
That's why you have trade agreements, so that
Mm-hmm.
those parts can cross the border either at low cost or no cost to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that the cars get built.
Well, that's the thing, because if you can source your parts from Mexico or Canada or the United States, and then you're going to assemble those parts into other parts and assemble those parts into a car, it's really helpful if you can get cheap, efficiently produced parts where they can be most effectively produced.
And close to you.
Exactly. And so having a free trade area for Mexico, the United States, and Canada has allowed the car industries of these 3 countries to be able to integrate their supply lines, to be able to gain huge benefits in terms of the efficiencies of scale that they can generate, which means lower cost for us who buy cars.
Well, for them.
Well,
we live in London.
Well, that's true. I don't have a car.
There's no way
I
to
can't
buy a
afford a
car.
goddamn
Are
car.
you kidding me? Anyway, which
So,
is
yeah.
better for us.
Indeed.
So clearly, you would have seen Trump would have gotten phone calls from the U.S. auto industry, who would have immediately said, "Hey, hey, guy,
Oh, yeah.
hey, genius,
Yeah.
you're about to put hundreds of thousands of people out of work because we can't afford to make cars anymore. So how about you don't do this?"
It's fine. You just make it in America, and then the Canada will be the 51st state, and then there won't be any tariffs, which are beautiful.
I'm just going to cut you off here. None of that makes any sense. And if you don't do this, undo this in the next 10 seconds. I'm going to ruin your life. I mean, like obviously something like that must have happened. Where now the way that Trump portrayed the rescission of the tariffs was that Canada and Mexico had acquiesced to his request.
Right.
However, they acquiesced to his request by doing things they're already going to do.
Yeah.
So where's the victory? And let's be honest here. Trump did a thing, and then he got a response, which he is claiming is a victory. But was it a victory?
Oh, in any objective sense? Absolutely not. It was a humiliating climb down.
Gasp.
The absolute proof to the entire world of how to handle this dumbass, which is that he comes to you and says, if you don't give me what I want, I will destroy you and everyone you love. And then you just say, all right, but then we'll raise tariffs against you. And yeah, that's what we'll do. Right the hell back, because why the hell wouldn't we?
And that is the other part of the story, is that the Canadians went absolutely nuts, and they said, "Oh, we're not dealing with this.
Yeah.
We're not part of this nonsense."
Yeah.
And they put higher tariffs on 1,000 different goods. They start saying a huge Buy Canadian campaign in Canada. They're taking American products off the shelves in Canada. I mean, we're talking quick. They were ready for this.
The entire political spectrum in Canada all of a sudden found itself united in opposition to the United States being a dickwad.
Yeah.
Like, I have never seen such a unifying thing happen outside of a country being invaded, because let's be clear here, Chris.
Yeah.
Donald Trump was committing a hostile act against our neighbor, against our ally.
Yes.
It is incredible to me that and the thing is, right? The free trade agreement that they were currently operating under,
Yes.
the U.S., Canada, Mexico area agreement. That was actually negotiated by Donald Trump.
No.
Oh, yes.
No, that can't be.
During his first
I thought it
administration.
was Sleepy Joe Biden who
It
did
was
that.
not at all. Not even
that's not
slightly.
possible.
No, it was a huge victory at the time. Don't you remember?
I remember
because
that.
Donald Trump had threatened to raise tariffs against Mexico and Canada in violation of the NAFTA agreement that we had with them, thus making clear to everyone, no, you cannot trust the word of the United States. So obviously, you should make agreements with the United States whose word cannot be trusted.
Yeah.
And the new agreement was fundamentally the same as the old agreement, but Donald Trump declared victory.
Surely, I recall that new agreement, the main part of the new agreement was just renaming it. Mm-hmm. So NAFTA, which rolls off the tongue, by the way, the North American Free Trade Act, and he changed it to the U.S. basically putting U.S. first in the title, but not changing the content.
He's putting America first,
which is basically
like the German-American Bund of the 1930s.
Well, and there we are. I mean, and obviously, while we will not get too deep into the next one or two topics, There was the horrible plane crash in D.C.
Yeah, there sure was.
Which they immediately tried to turn into
Yeah.
DEI is the problem.
Yeah, which it's really impressive to me that a military helicopter flies into the flight path of a civilian airplane, and the first thing that they do is to blame the Jews and the blacks and the women and the everybody.
Disabled.
Yeah. Oh, the disabled.
People
must
with
have been
disabilities.
must have been the disabled who totally did it. And the reason why you would do such a thing, Chris,
Okay.
is because the probably the biggest reason why such a crash might have happened. I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah, go ahead.
But, what if you were to say become president and on the first day fire the head of the Federal Aviation Administration?
What do they do?
Well, they do things like keep planes from crashing into each other, Chris.
I don't believe that. Elon told me that he could just do it with his iPad.
Well, that's true. He does have that very fancy AI that allows all the Teslas to totally be able to be full self-driving in the next 6 months. Check back in 6 months to see how many more 6 months are necessary for that. Yeah. But so he fires the head of the FAA.
Yes.
And then, and this is really funny, right?
Right.
One of the big problems the FAA has had is that they're the ones who employ air traffic controllers, and we have been running low on air traffic controllers.
It's a very stressful job.
Exactly, and they have been doubling up on the work. They've been working overtime. There's not enough air traffic controllers, so that any big surge in the system might really cause problems. So one big thing you'd want to do, if you're president, if you're trying to fix that, is to hire more air traffic controllers.
Yeah.
By doing things like saying, hey, if you have a disability that doesn't impact your ability to do this job, please do apply because, we do need more air traffic controllers who know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And if you know what you're doing, the fact that you have a disability is not going to stand in the way.
Of course not.
Which is, DEI. So, yeah, but Donald Trump, you see, immediately decided what we need to do is to fire air traffic controllers.
Yeah.
Send them all a resignation letter, offering to basically pay them 8 months of salary if they resign their positions, without hiring anybody to replace them.
Which creates a massive glut of people. It's and it creates a situation where I believe it was somebody from the FAA said, "How did this happen?" He said, "We don't have enough people."
Yeah.
And so, obviously, what you do politically, and this is horrible, just real politic here. You just say, you just shift the story away from you because obviously, people could easily say, "Hey, you fired all the key people in the FAA," and then a week later, there was the first and one of the worst
in 16 years.
Aviation disasters
16
in 16
years without an aviation disaster came to a halt in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
You're right.
Yeah, it was a week after.
It was a week. You're right. It was only a week. My God, time moves differently now.
Time does move differently.
Yeah,
it's been a long month this week.
It has been a long month this week.
And finally, we couldn't end this without talking about Trump's, frankly, insane plan to take over Gaza.
Yeah, just own it. It's the thing is, Chris. It's beautiful beachfront property.
Yeah.
It's the Riviera of the Mediterranean, much as Beirut was the Riviera of the Mediterranean.
Yes, we understand that there are a lot of there's a very complicated story and history in the area. So I'll just stick with this. Trump said that Israel was just going to give the Gaza to the United States,
sure.
and there was no requirement for any military intervention at all.
No.
Which, of course, totally makes sense if you want to enter a space where. Now, I'm just spitballing here. Where an American flag may not be as welcome as one might think.
Possibly.
In the current moment.
Very possibly, yeah.
So to declare kind of out loud that not only will we take it over, but it'll be given to us willingly, and we're also going to, and this is the important part, take every single Palestinian and put them somewhere else. There's 2 million of them.
Now that's funny because when Stalin did that to the Tatars in Crimea, everyone understood that is in fact ethnic cleansing.
Yeah.
Even if Stalin did say, "Oh, but they're like it's so much more in the middle of Siberia."
Yeah.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah, it's like going to Jacksonville, Florida, and saying you're all moving to Tallahassee. Why? Because you'll like it better there, and we need the land.
It's gonna be great.
Or what the
your
American
property
government...
is ours now, and we're taking it because we just can do that because we have guns.
Or it's like what the American government did to the Native Americans.
Oh, it is a little bit like that. Come to think
just
of it,
a
Chris.
little bit like that.
It is slightly like that.
Oh, we like Wyoming. We're just going to have that.
Yeah.
Where do you live? I don't care.
Yeah.
So this, and now we should probably caveat this with nobody thinks this is this is a viable plan.
I mean, in the sense that and I do have a plan, Chris, to do this, by the way.
Okay.
To learn to fly by flapping my arms and then use that power to take over the world.
Well, there. You've thought it, so it must happen.
I've got concepts of a plan.
You have concepts of the self-flying
exactly.
plan.
Yeah.
So, it's been absolute chaos, perhaps a hurricane of chaos in these first 2.5 weeks of.
Might we go so far as to say, Chris, it was a hurrichaos?
Hurrichaos. All right, we're gonna leave that to the comments to see if that works.
Yeah, let's see if that turkey's gonna fly.
Let's see if that turkey's gonna fly. Right, we're gonna take a quick break, and then we'll be back with the second half.
See you then.
See ya. And we're back.
Woo! That was an excellent break. I feel refreshed. Do you feel refreshed?
I always feel refreshed after one of our breaks. I mean, for those of
Yep.
you who don't know, I leave the house, I sit in the garden,
Mm-hmm.
I contemplate my place in the universe.
I did notice you levitating just a little bit.
Well, I have to practice, but I'm able to get a little bit of levitation out there.
Well, that's good. That's
And
good for you.
it's definitely not just me hitting pause. I think we're starting.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Filthy lies.
Filthy lies. Now, the next section is going to be Patrick to start it because now to go here, I have to clarify something. So your doctorate is, we both have doctorates in basically political science.
Wait, in doctors, not doctors?
Yes, doctors, not doctors.
That's fantastic.
Doctors.
We're not lying about that. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes, we're not lying. We can both prove it. Unlike some of the people who are being confirmed. But you did your focus of your work was in game theory.
That's true, actually.
It's an area which I don't play with that much, but game theory.
I mean, I wouldn't call myself out as like one of the great experts in the world. In fact, I would basically say I'm a man who barely knows what he's doing most of the time on most things.
There it is.
But you see, game theory, that's something that that's something that I mess with. That's my jam. And
Game theory? I like game theory.
Exactly, right? If you grew up playing Nintendo, you know what I'm talking about.
Okay. We're going to need a bit more definition there, but let's talk about... So you wanted to start off this section by talking about the prisoner's dilemma. So
I absolutely did.
Describe that first.
So, here's the deal. Game theory is effectively a way of trying to think through the strategic logic of interactions amongst people. How do you know what it is you want to do in order to get what you want, given what everyone else is going to do and what it is that they want? So you can almost think about a social interaction as being a game, with rules, with moves, with players, and if you're willing to make those heroic assumptions, then you could start getting a little bit of insight. Now, I'm going to say right up front that nothing I'm going to say here is going to be the way the world works.
Yeah.
Dun dun. What I am going to say is that it's a helpful tool for thinking about how things could work and helping to structure your thoughts. So, one of the games that is talked about a lot in game theory is what's known as the prisoner's dilemma. Allow me to run a scenario past you, Chris.
Fantastic.
Imagine that you and I are bank robbers.
Sweet.
I know, right? And, more to the point, we have successfully robbed a bank.
Oh, great.
I know!
Fantastic.
And we got $2 million out of it, which is pretty sweet.
$2 million?
I know.
I could buy half a house here.
Right. I know. Seriously. So then we stash the loot, and unfortunately then we both get picked up by the cops. I know. Into every life a little rain must fall. Now, the problem here is this. They're going to interrogate us both.
Oh.
They're going to keep us separate.
Oh.
And they're going to tell each of us, all right, sunshine, you nicked, because your mate has just ratted you out.
Oh.
I know.
Ruh-roh.
But it's all right because if you play ball now, we can make sure that you get a reduced sentence.
Oh, so if I sell you out,
Indeed.
then
Indeed.
I don't have to be here as long.
Exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
great.
And if I were to do the same to you, I would not be here as long.
Oh, okay.
The thing is, the cops are lying, though.
What? No.
They
Lies. They don't do that.
Well, they are legally allowed, Chris, I'll have you know.
Oh.
At least in the United States.
Well, there it is.
Yeah. And as it happens, neither of us has so far ratted each other out. And they don't have enough to be able to prosecute us without one of us confessing.
Right.
So, in that scenario, the question then becomes, what do you do?
Okay.
You've got two options here. You could, on the one hand, rat me out.
Right.
On the other hand, you could stay silent.
Right.
And I've got the same set of actions.
Correct.
Now, the question is, what outcomes do these lead to?
Correct.
Let's say that we both rat each other out.
Right.
Well, now the cops have the evidence to be able to convict us.
Both.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And we will both get convicted, and we will both serve reduced sentences.
Right, right.
But
We're still going to jail for some period of time.
we're going to jail for some period of time.
And we've given up the crime and potentially where the money is.
Well, the thing is, right? Let's say the cops don't know where the money is. So maybe we spend 10 years in prison, we get out, and then we split $2 million.
Oh.
So I mean, yeah, there's worse things that could happen. Worse things such as I stay silent and you rat me out.
Yeah.
Because then I take the fall for the whole thing, and you're free to get the money all to yourself. That's $2 million for you right
Just
there.
for me.
Yeah. And if you stay silent and I rat you out, the same happens, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. But if we both stay silent, well, then we both walk, and we get $1 million each.
That's right.
So, what is it that should happen? And a lot of you are sitting there thinking, well, obviously the smart play is to both shut the hell up and not do any time. You get $1 million, you don't go to prison. How is that not the best possible outcome? And I agree that is the best possible outcome for both players taken together.
Yes.
But what if you're one of the players?
Yes.
And you're thinking to yourself, on the one hand, if I stay silent, and you stay silent,
Yeah.
I get $1 million, and that's awesome. But if you stay silent and I talk, I get $2 million, and I don't go to prison. And $2 million, I think you'll find, is bigger than $1 million.
I hear that's the truth.
Yeah. So, obviously, if I know you're going to stay silent, I'm better off ratting you out.
Yeah.
But let's say I know for a fact you're going to rat me out.
Okay.
Right? If that's what I know is going to happen.
I'm an untrustworthy person.
If I stay silent, I'm going to prison, and I get no money. And that's terrible. I don't want that situation to happen. Whereas if I rat you out as well, yes, I go to prison, but then I get $1 million at the end of it.
Yeah.
So if I know you're going to rat me out, I want to rat you out. So no matter what you're going to do, I want to rat you out.
And this creates the problem. This creates the dilemma.
This is the dilemma. The problem here effectively is this. If both of us follow our incentives, we're both going to rat each other out. We're both going to go to prison. Even though we still get the money at the end of it, that's a terrible outcome. I don't like that outcome. I want a better outcome than that. But I can't get it alone.
Right.
I can't get it unless we cooperate.
Right.
Even though we both have an incentive to defect.
And also, there's no perfect information here. You don't know what the other person's going to do.
Exactly.
And obviously, the cops aren't going to tell you, hey, your buddy's just done this. Or they could lie to you.
Oh, 100%.
So they could tell you, oh, your friend's already ratted you out.
Exactly.
Or they haven't, and they're waiting for it. You don't know. So you have to do this in complete isolation.
Exactly.
Two people in complete isolation, right?
And that's the thing. And what if I told you before we rob the bank, don't worry, Chris, I will never rat you out. Ride or die.
And I sit there, thumbs up, and in my head, I'm like, this dickhead's going to rat me out.
What kind of, that's the thing. How could I guarantee to you that I would stay silent? And why would I guarantee to you that I would stay silent if that would mean that you ratting me out gives you $2 million and I get nothing? Like, that's a terrible situation.
Thus increasing the dilemma.
That's increasing the dilemma. Now, the implication of this is that if it's a one-shot deal, we do this, we're never going to see each other again.
Right.
We're almost certainly going to rat each other out. That's going to happen. Even though we'd be better off both cooperating.
But we don't know each other.
Right? We get a bad outcome, but not the worst outcome for ourselves.
Right.
But what if this ain't the only bank?
Oh.
What if we're going to rob another bank after this one?
Yes.
And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, I could get the $2 million right now, or I could stay stum, we cooperate, we rob another bank.
Yeah.
I mean, that tips things a bit.
Yeah.
What if we're going to keep robbing banks, and as long as we keep staying silent, we can keep getting that money? Well, now that $2 million payoff right up front, that's not looking as hot as, like, $10 million over the course of several successful bank robberies.
Yes.
So, one way that you could solve the prisoner's dilemma is to have a repeated game where everyone's thinking, okay, the future matters to me.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I'm continuing to cooperate because I get the benefits of that cooperation. If I screw you over now, I'm not going to get you to cooperate again, am I?
No. Why? Why would you?
Exactly.
At least that's in theory.
Well, in theory.
Yes.
The problem is this. Let's say we're definitely going to rob 10 banks and that's it. And then we're out.
Right.
So, we've successfully cooperated 9 times in a row. Now it's on the 10th bank robbery. We're all ready to go. I still get $2 million if I rat you out and you don't.
Yeah.
I'm still better ratting you out on that last one because there's not going to be another bank to rob.
Right. Benefit over.
Well, that's the thing. So I'm going to screw you over and you're going to screw me over and we're going to defect against each other in that last bank. Okay, fine. But what about the bank before that, the 9th bank?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know you're going to screw me over in the 10th bank. So, I mean, I might as well get what I can now.
Yeah.
And same with you. So, okay, so fine. We don't cooperate in the 9th bank. But if we're not going to cooperate on the ninth, and
as it keeps on going down, 8,
7,
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and then you're back to 1.
and then you're back to 1. So simply repeating the game ain't enough.
Okay.
What if the game's going to go on forever?
An infinite game.
Or at least there's no known end to it. We don't know when the game is going to end.
Okay.
Well, then, if I care enough about the future, and if you care enough about the future,
Correct.
then we could make this work. So that's one potential solution to the prisoner's dilemma.
Right.
But there are others. For example, what if you and I are bank robbers,
Okay.
but we're both part of the mob? We're both in a mafia family.
So we have a wider organization.
We got a wider organization. And that wider organization, it's going to get a cut, right?
Right.
So it doesn't want us screwing each other over because then it won't get as much money.
Correct.
So what if the mob boss brings us into the office one day and says, boys, I know what you're thinking, but don't do it. I need you guys to stay silent because I want that money. And if you don't, we'll find you in prison.
Right. So you have another external thing that, but you
Exactly.
you both know it.
Exactly.
Right.
So you've got an external control, basically. You've got something to raise the cost of defection enough. Well, that could make cooperating the better deal. That could make it rational for both of us to cooperate.
Right.
Yeah. So that's one other way of doing it, right?
Okay.
Now, here's where we apply this to the world at large, right?
Oh, thank God.
Exactly. Enough of this bank robbery business. Let's get to geopolitics.
Yeah, let's get back to geopolitics and how we apply it to the real world.
Exactly. Like, let's say you go to buy some shoes, Chris.
All right.
Yeah.
I've done that before.
You've got money, they got shoes, you prefer the shoes to your money and vice versa.
Yeah.
It seems like trade is awesome, trade's going to happen, everyone's going to be better off. But then you think to yourself, you know what I would prefer to have more than just shoes?
What's that?
Shoes and money.
Shoes and money. Yeah.
Shoes and money.
Yeah, great.
So if you could steal the shoes and not pay the money, you'd be better off than if you paid the money for the shoes.
Well, yeah.
And the shopkeeper can think to himself, you know, I like having money, but if I have shoes and money,
Yes.
then that's better, isn't it?
Yes.
So the shopkeeper has an incentive to try to rip you off as well.
Yes.
Yeah, now, why don't we worry about this when we go and buy our shoes?
Well, I'm pretty sure we have laws
Ooh,
that are enforced.
an external force
An external force.
to raise the cost of defection.
Correct.
The mob boss is the state itself.
The mob boss is the government.
Exactly. So the government can play that role of ensuring cooperation amongst otherwise, potentially touchy people.
But self-interested parties who are going to try and get the best outcome for themselves. Why should I deprive myself of money if I could get the thing that I want and maintain what I have,
That's
and
the
vice
thing.
versa?
Exactly. And the nice thing is that the state really does want trade to happen because that's how it gets taxes. It gets paid if everyone cooperates.
Yeah.
So it has an incentive to make sure that we keep cooperating with each other.
Yes.
So it's nice. It's a good thing to have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, we know that this is one of the things that's happening because think of every movie you've ever seen with a drug deal, right?
Sure. I'll think of a few.
What happens in every movie drug deal? They betray each other, right? Because it's great having the drugs, but what if you could have the drugs and the money?
I see what you're saying.
Exactly,
I see
right?
what you're saying, yes.
Now, the thing is, why would you not be able to have that same equilibrium of cooperation happen with the drug deal? Because you can't go to the government and say, hey, he stole my drugs.
There's no external arbiter.
Right.
Like a judge.
That's the thing.
There's nobody to enforce the deal, which is why you have to pay so much for it, but there's also incredibly high risk.
Exactly.
Who do you complain to?
That's the thing. So, like, and then you get into an arms race situation of, well, everyone's got to have guys with them for the deal, right?
Yes.
You got to have, like, 5 dudes, and they got to have guns, but they're going to have, like, 5 dudes, and they got to have guns. And dudes are costly, and guns cost money. And this is inefficient, people.
Incredibly inefficient. So that's why they call it organized crime.
Exactly. It solves a problem.
It solves a problem to an extent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So
Okay. So that has nothing to do with politics. That's just people, right?
Yeah.
So we have individuals who are self-interested, who are tempered or moderated by the government, or by, whether it be your city or your council or whatever. And then obviously, if that moderating factor doesn't exist, we'd be living in houses that probably would fall down before we moved in.
Well, there you go.
Give us the money, the house isn't even there.
Right, exactly. And so, without some kind of guarantee that people are on the up and up, it's really hard to cooperate with others. And if you can't cooperate with others, that's basically the end of society. Like,
Oh, it's just
that's,
anarchy.
well, yeah, that's the literal nasty, brutish, and short situation that Thomas Hobbes was talking about. Yeah, so that's not great.
No, we don't want that.
But let's apply this to politics, right?
Okay.
So we're going to leave the state out of it. There's no mob boss anymore. There's no enforcer. How do you maintain cooperation? Well, if the game goes on and you don't know when it's going to end, and if both of us agree that if you screw me over, I will never cooperate again, that should get you to cooperate, and
Right.
vice versa.
Right.
But if one of us screws up accidentally, that could be a real problem, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
So there actually was a bunch of studies, basically tournaments of prisoners' dilemmas, having people play this game. Oh yeah, yeah.
It's like the Excel spreadsheet tournaments.
Oh, 100%. It is the nerdiest thing you have ever seen in your life, people.
Fantastic.
But what they were doing was testing out different strategies, different ways of playing the game. And one strategy that dominated again and again and again was tit for tat.
Tit for tat.
Tit for tat.
Huh.
I do to you whatever you did to me last time.
Yes.
You cooperate last time, I cooperate this time.
Mm-hmm.
You screw me over last time, I screw you over this time.
Okay.
So, if that's the situation, right? Well, I don't want to get screwed over next round. So I'm not going to screw you over this round. And we can agree, okay, we're just going to keep cooperating, basically. And if I do screw up, but I let you, screw me over the next time, I've re-achieved balance, we can move forward again, we can keep cooperating.
Okay. All right.
So if you're, say, the United States Senate,
Sure.
if you're a senator, and any one of you can just gum up the works.
Yes,
Anyone,
which
right?
any one of them can.
Oh, yes, absolutely, right?
Very powerful legislators.
Exactly. But there's stuff that you do want to get past.
Yes.
Well, okay, you could fuck over the other side, but they could do the same to you. As long as both of you agree that, yeah, any defection is going to be punished,
Yeah.
and then equilibrium is reestablished and we can keep going, as long as you know the game is not going to end, it should be possible to maintain a cooperative system.
Yes.
And that would be, say, a system in which, yeah, one side wins power, they're able to pass the things that they want, there are limits to how they can use that power because the minority still has some rights, but the Senate keeps working.
And just in the real world, there is collaboration.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you want to get something passed that helps both people.
Exactly. Not everything is an either-or proposition. Not everything is a zero-sum
Not
game.
everything is partisan.
Exactly. I think one of the reasons why the Senate has become so much harder to work with, why it has failed to operate effectively for the last several decades, is that, number one, the Republican Party has slowly stopped wanting to pass laws. Their interest is in preventing laws from getting passed, which means that they really don't have to worry about the Democrats defecting against them so much.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the Democrats have been very, very, very loath to basically fight fire with fire.
Or abandon the game.
Right, exactly. And the problem is, if you're not willing to meet defection with defection, if you're not willing to make clear the consequences of failing to cooperate, what you're doing is saying, you can keep taking advantage of me, and I will do nothing to stop it.
I think here is a good point. It's a good chance to compare the different kinds of systems. So in America, we have a lot more. Theoretically, we have a lot more collaboration, and we're not. And we don't have an opposition party per se. You have the majority party and the minority party, and they're expected more or less to work together on some things.
Yeah.
But then the majority party has the majority, so they can get what they want done. But occasionally, the minority party might be able to get something done as well.
Right.
In both houses. In the UK, it's completely different. There is
Oh, yeah.
just the majority. There's the government.
Yep.
And then there's the opposition. And the opposition's job in the UK is just to watch.
Yep.
And that's
To watch and make snarky comments.
to watch, shake their papers loudly, but not be able to do that much about it. Whereas in America, you don't just sit there and watch. You can do something about it, specifically if you're a senator, which is what they were trying to do in trying to halt the appointment of Russ Vought the chair of the Office of
Office of Management and Budget, I think, OMB.
the OMB, yeah. And so, but I agree with what you're saying is that the Republicans have effectively turned into when they're not in the majority, they turn into an opposition party. And when they are in the majority, they turn into what we would call here the government, whereas they expect everything they do to go by without question.
Yep.
And if they're not in government, their job is to gum
Stop
up the
everything.
works as hard as you can, and then blame the government and blame the majority party for it.
Exactly.
So the rules of the game change, but the Democrats kind of have not risen to the occasion of
Yeah.
protecting themselves in a way because I don't think that they're equipped to handle this.
In a sense, I think a bunch of Democratic senators and Democratic congressmen came up at a time where the expectation was, well, sure, there's, the majority party, there's the minority party, but you got to work together, right?
But there was the norms.
Yeah,
It was how things worked.
exactly. Those norms have been slipping for quite some time. For example, Chris,
Yeah.
in the Senate, there's this thing called the filibuster.
I'm familiar with the filibuster.
Indeed. And the filibuster, for those of you who don't know, means that you need to end debate 60 senators agreeing to end debate. Otherwise, you cannot end it. I think I have that right.
Yeah, it's 2/3, I think, or no, it's 60 senators have to agree to end the debate, and and basically you can just talk and talk and talk,
Yeah.
and talk and talk. I don't even think it has to be on topic. You
Oh,
just
yeah.
talk.
Oh, you
And
don't.
You
the
have
thing
to
is,
hold, but the important part is that you hold the floor, and nothing else can happen until
Debate has ended.
Until debate has ended.
Exactly, right? So, effectively, what that means is that you could theoretically, exactly as you say, start talking during debate and just keep going because there's no mechanism in the Senate to end debate outside of having what's called a cloture vote, and you need 60 senators out of 100 for that.
I.e., you need, if you don't have the 60 or 66 senators, you're going to need some of the minority party to go along with you.
Exactly. So the problem there is that a committed minority party, if they can get 41 senators on board to sustain a filibuster, to prevent debate from ending, they can prevent anything from happening. Now, decades ago, this was rare.
Yeah.
And it was rare because in order to do it, you had to be willing to stand up and talk and talk and talk and talk. And that sucks.
You had to literally stand up and speak
Yes.
for as long as you could. I
Yeah.
think if Mr. Smith Goes to Washington does a great
Exactly.
version of
Good.
this.
Exactly. That's like the dramatic version where you're on the side of the filibusterer. In reality, it was much more the 1960s where Strom Thurmond, who was a rancid segregationist.
Famous segregation.
Yeah,
Infamous
exactly. Was
segregation.
willing to talk for over 24 hours to prevent the passage of, I believe, the Civil Rights Act of 1960.
Well, I mean, you can't have civil rights.
Yeah.
in America. That's ridiculous. You need to go back about 100 years.
Well,
It's not
exactly,
bad for it.
right? And so, yeah.
But that's the issue with the game here. So, and speaking of the filibuster, how does it work now?
Well, the problem is that everyone knows, okay, well, if someone is willing to get up and talk and talk and talk, they'll grind Senate business to a total halt, and that's really costly. So, okay, the Republicans are going to filibuster. Well, we know we can't break the filibuster. Can't we just move on? Okay, you win. Fine, fine, fine. Which means that there's no longer a cost to offering a filibuster. You don't have to get up and talk. You don't need to strain your voice. You don't need to not go to the bathroom.
You don't have to put the effort in.
Yeah, exactly.
To hold business.
So if you reduce the cost of defection, you shouldn't be surprised when defection starts happening more. And what we've seen is precisely an explosion in the number of filibusters that have been happening in the Senate.
Over the past,
over the past
several decades.
Well, over the past 30 years, exactly.
30 years,
it's just
yeah.
been getting worse and worse and worse. And this is much more a situation of Republicans filibustering Democratic majorities than the other way around. And there has been some attempt to deal with this. For example, it used to be that you could filibuster Supreme Court nominees.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Harry Reid, the Democratic majority leader in the Senate back in the 2000s, I think, was like, right, screw this noise. The Senate can change its rules. Let's just remove the filibuster for, really important stuff like Supreme Court justices.
There it is.
Which was great right up until the Republicans then gained the Senate and were like, we're going to stack the Supreme Court with a bunch of totally chaotic fascists. We're just going to do that.
Yeah.
And then the Democrats were not in a position to stop them because the filibuster had been removed. There's not an easy solution to this, sadly.
No, there isn't an easy solution to it because, again, if you don't wield the power that you have and then willingly give it away,
Yep.
obviously you're not going to get it back. It's kind of a lesson for America.
Yeah.
It's very easy to lose your rights and very, very difficult to get them back.
Yeah. Yeah.
How this ties into the prisoner's dilemma, basically by saying both of us could work together and get an okay outcome, or I can screw you over and get a best outcome. And the MAGA party now has emerged from the 30 years of Republicans screwing over the Democrats, and the Democrats saying, "Well, that's not how things work, and why aren't you
Yep.
playing by the rules?" And the
Yep.
Republicans are like, "We're playing for keeps. They're not playing by the rules."
Yeah.
And just the lack of understanding about what's happening, and also you've got external forces as well,
Mm.
media organizations that are propaganda arms of the MAGA party.
That is one of the
Um,
big things. In fact, that's, I think, really perceptive to point out, especially before, say, the rise of Fox News in the 1990s.
yeah,
One of the things that was keeping politicians in line was the media, where if the media was like, oh, well, that's not cricket, that's not cool, that's
right.
breaking the norms, that would be a big scandal. It would be a story. Voters would then hear about it. Voters might say to themselves, well, wait, what are you doing? You can't break the government like that. That's our government.
Yeah.
Stop messing with our stuff. And
That stuff.
and all of a sudden, that would be the kind of thing that might make politicians think twice.
Yeah, because they would get called out in public by people who knew what they were talking about, and anyone who was on their side for cracking the American system to bring about authoritarianism would effectively be. You'd only hear that on talk radio.
Right.
That's a Rush Limbaugh thing, if you
Right.
remember his name.
And the problem is that now you've got Fox News, now you've got OANN, you've got an entire right-wing information ecosystem that is totally separate from the real world.
And Frontline in the White House, and the
Oh,
same
yeah.
thing in a similar way is happening in the UK.
Mm.
We have, and we should probably address this as well, because how do you deal with this in the UK? Recently, the Reform UK Limited Party, which is a corporation, has topped the polls for the first time. And again, you have the question: what do you do about that if you're not just the left or the proposed left by Keir Starmer and the Labour Party, but also if you are the theoretical center right or the right wing party like the Conservatives?
What if you're just not in favor of having Nigel Farage's face on TV forever?
Yeah, I mean, you have there are huge issues, and the question is, it's a bigger issue. What happens when you get somebody in power who doesn't want to play by the conventional rules?
Yeah.
Which is what we've talked about in America, and now we may be dealing with in the UK.
Yep.
Because the UK does not have a filibuster rule. It doesn't. The members of parliament are not powerful enough to be able to stop things from happening. It's the government who controls the legislature. And if we are looking, and the next election might be in 4 years or 3 years or 5 years. We don't know.
Yeah.
But if at the end of that cycle, Nigel Farage becomes prime minister on the back of 32 or 33% of the vote, he will have 100% of the power.
Yep.
And the only thing holding the UK together is the good chap theory, which is effectively rich dudes are from the right schools.
Yep.
Will always do the right thing because that's just the way it always happens.
That's how they've been raised.
Because that's the way things are done.
Exactly.
But kind of using your example from America, from over here in the UK, you've seen a degradation of that conventions-based system.
Yep.
Specifically with Boris Johnson and how he lied to Parliament and lied to the Queen, things that would have never been thought of even 5 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
David Cameron would have never done it.
Yeah. Well, in a way, Boris Johnson crawled so that Nigel Farage could slither.
And because they're both coming from the same idea of populism and just get what I can while I can get it, maximize as much power as I can coalesce around myself.
Yep.
And in the UK, especially in the House of Commons, we sit there and we say, oh well, that's just not the done thing. It cannot happen. And I when I started working in there, I said, oh, but it's not written down because I'm American. I'm like, that's not written down. Yeah. Someone's going to break that rule or break that convention. And now we are looking at if Nigel Farage becomes, the leader of a coalition or, God forbid, it is a singular party.
Yeah.
There's nothing stopping him from passing legislation like Build the Camps, denaturalization, which then brings us on to Kimmy Badenoch,
Indeed.
who is the leader of the Conservative Party here, and she has to figure out how to attack what's coming from him.
Yeah.
Right? And so she decided to do what you never should do and go further crazy than the crazy guy.
Yeah.
So she's now proposing, let's prevent people from getting naturalization. And basically you have to wait 15 years. You have to wait like 10 years to get your indefinite leave to remain, an additional 5 years or something. That's her plan.
I mean, it's she's taking notes from like John Adams on the Alien and Sedition Acts. It sounds like.
Oh well, I mean, she's one step away from saying, kick out every brown foreigner, which, by the way, would have kicked out her parents.
Yeah.
And people, I don't think people here are realizing the severity Because
Just how dangerous that would be.
because so many people are still in that kind of democratic haze of this is how things should be,
Right.
and they're not understanding.
The parties are all the same. Nothing ever really changes. And that's why I'm going to roll the dice and vote for someone who's really just going to stir things up.
It's going to slightly stir things up, but they're definitely not going to affect me. They're
Right.
not going to take away my
Yeah,
rights.
exactly.
And
The leopards will not eat my face.
the leopards cannot and will not eat my
Exactly,
face. Which is,
exactly.
again, brings us back to the dilemma. And I feel that the UK is in the same haze that the Democrats are in, and the Democrats are now scrambling
Yeah.
to figure out how to
Suddenly realizing
address.
just how much ground they have lost on this. I will say this. If you're worried about maintaining norms, if you're worried about keeping things on an even keel, you as a citizen have a responsibility to basically kick up a fuss. You have got to raise the hue and cry, contact your legislatures, contact your member of parliament, form neighborhood groups, organize, start attending your local party meetings if you think your party is something that might actually be able to help a bit. Basically, all of this depends upon people breaking norms, breaking rules, breaking customs, and no one pushing back on people not defecting back because they can't accept the idea that the rules of the game have changed.
Yes, exactly. So, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to start this podcast. This is how we're doing it.
Yeah.
We could sit home and do not or say nothing. This is a Saturday.
Yeah.
I'd rather be playing video games,
Right.
and be at the pub or something.
Yep.
But I'd much prefer being here and getting this out to as many people as we can. Send it to.
Yeah.
Because
it's something.
This is
something is better than nothing.
Yeah, this is something, and something is better than nothing. And this is we are the last barrier.
Yeah.
I was trying to explain once how basically how to protect democracy.
Yeah.
And the outer layer of protection of democracy are the people, because we have the right to put people in power. And that outer layer protects the most inner layer of democracy, which is surprisingly also the people.
Yep. I think that's a really good way of describing it, Chris. I am legitimately very excited by that. Like,
I'll draw you a diagram.
Nice! I love a diagram. Every political scientist loves a diagram.
Well, we love
If you're
diagrams.
looking for a Christmas present for that political scientist in your life, find a diagram.
Find a diagram and get me a whiteboard. I love a whiteboard.
Yep.
Well, listen. You got other places to be today, man.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Nope.
we're
I'm
gonna
afraid time marches on for all of us.
Yeah, we got to call it here.
Okay.
So listen, it's been great talking to you, whoever you are,
And
wherever
thank
you're
you
listening
for giving us your time, because we know you're busy too, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, as always, I'm Dr. Silverstein.
And I'm Dr. Armshaw, and we are
Doctors.
not doctors.